No matter how much it costs, I just want to retrieve the data inside. Today, we need to rescue an iPhone P30. The value of this device is only a few hundred yuan, and the current screen is already shattered. Of course, the owner is mainly concerned about the data inside. You might think, how could there be so much important data? But you will understand when it happens to you. At that time, his friend was in despair. Of course, what data is inside and whether it is important or not depends on personal needs, so this fan strongly recommended his brother to us for repair, but his brother still didn't believe it. In the end, we have to thank this fan's recommendation. Finally, this order ended up in our hands. Actually, in our regular repairs, we have helped many brothers keep their important data. Of course, if you haven't repaired the motherboard before, the success rate will be much higher. Those who have saved data with us, please come forward. Indeed, during the disassembly process, a piece of the motherboard fell out, but what is not clear is why the case did not seem bent or dented. So why did the motherboard break like this? And you can clearly see that the CPU has already been repaired. Honestly, since big components have been moved, there's very little confidence in preserving the data. So first, we need to take the CPU off and see what's inside. If it's already shattered or disconnected, then this device is useless during the CPU disassembly process, because the hard disk also needs preheating, even though it hasn't been taken apart. We took it out together. Next, we treated the CPU's upper and lower layers and checked it, but we found only one bent leg at the CPU's corner, no other cracks or drop points. Since it's not a chip we took off ourselves, there's a high chance the CPU is already damaged and can't retrieve the data, but we still need to try. We also cleaned off the hard disk's adhesive and reapplied thermal paste to the CPU, including installing the RAM and hard disk. And of course, those who often watch our videos know what we are going to do next, since the motherboard is already broken. We need to get a good second-hand device and move these 3 encryption chips onto a good motherboard. Of course, this operation needs to ensure the chip's integrity. If the chip is damaged, the process will be in vain, and we might even lose a motherboard. We need to remove the CPU and hard disk from the good board and clean the corners and soldering points. During disassembly, there might be a risk of damaging the motherboard, so whether it's a fan's version or ours, this risk always exists. And we need to help the customer control the risk, meaning that if there's any risk, we'll have to bear the cost. So where's the expense in saving the data? It lies in the cost of the motherboard and external components. Even if we're saving data, we also add a few hundred yuan in labor costs. At the same time, we also need to ensure the risk factor. After processing the good motherboard, we can install the encrypted 3-piece set on the board layer and install the CPU. Now is the time to witness a miracle. If it doesn't work, we'll not only lose a motherboard but also waste 1 or 2 hours without earning a penny. Of course, we hope the CPU is good. Luckily, the iPhone logo lit up, and after waiting for a while, it entered the system normally. In this version of data preservation, we didn't let you down and kept the data. In fact, we can abandon the repair after exporting the data now, but we're still thinking that if the screen is good, the fan can still use it. This would be more cost-effective than just saving data. So we need to check whether the screen is damaged or not. Surprisingly, the shattered display can still work. Normally, when reinstalling the old screen, it was stuck on the iPhone logo and couldn't enter the system. When we installed our screen, it could enter the system, but the old one couldn't. We suspected that it was caused by some external part, so we removed the connecting cable, and sure enough, the machine started up and successfully entered the system for the fan to use the machine normally. We first disassembled the tail plug small board to see where the fault was that caused the logo impact. We observed that the copper skin of the tail plug had broken corners, and the capacitors and resistors at the headphone jack were burned black. We directly removed the burned part and connected it with copper wire, cleaning it up. Because the corners of the tail plug were already oxidized and rusted, we scraped off the electrolyte stains and cleaned it to avoid the machine not being able to charge. After handling these 2 parts, the phone started normally, but the charging test showed that it could not be charged. In the end, we had to replace the whole tail plug small board, and the charging was restored. So this iPhone P30, which cost a lot to preserve quality, successfully kept the data, and fortunately, all the functions of the machine are completely normal. Actually, the motherboard of this machine is only worth 300 or 400 yuan, but with our labor costs, he could buy a new one. But often, the importance of data is not about its value.